Welcome to the Food Matters Live podcast, where we showcase the innovations, the big ideas, and the visionaries in the food industry. We dig deep, we look to the future and the past, and we question everything we think we know about food. I'm Anthony Zara, and this episode has been made in partnership with IFF. Now, there's a challenge facing food manufacturers, and it could have the potential, in theory, to reshape the entire industry. It's GLP-1 medicines, commonly known as weight loss drugs. The recent boom in this area means food producers are having to grapple with a completely new set of consumer demands. How do they formulate products for consumers whose relationship with food has been fundamentally transformed? And it's not just about consumers who are on the treatment. What about those considering it, those who've come off it, and those for whom merely the conversation around it has got them thinking differently about food? For manufacturers, this creates both incredible opportunities and some serious formulation challenges. With me to help explore this topic are two fantastic guests from IFF's Food Ingredients Division. Signe Causse is a marketing director for Global Key Accounts. Hello, Signe.
Hello.
And Jane Whittaker is Global Key Account Innovation Lead. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Anthony.
Pleasure to have you both on the podcast. Look, maybe we should start with if each of you could briefly share a bit about your role, how it connects to the evolving nutrition landscape, and especially with trends like GLP-1.
So, as a marketing director, I really focus on aligning our ingredient solutions with the needs of our key customers. So, obviously, with GLP-1 reshaping how consumers approach their intake of food, their preference of food, my role is really to ensure that our messaging and our innovation pipeline and projects reflect this shift, bringing forward ingredients that support things like satiety, indulgence, and nutritional balance.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, and I lead the innovation side for our global key accounts, particularly in applications like beverages. And here we're translating the nutritional trends into real product solutions. So that can be reducing sugar, enhancing texture, or boosting the protein. GLP-1, it is a real game changer. And we're helping the brands to rise to this challenge with specially developed formulations.
Brilliant. Okay. All right. Look, GLP-1 has been in the news a lot, hasn't it? But maybe we should just have a very, very quick back to basics. What is it? And what effect does it have on the body?
Yeah, great question. Good place to start. So, GLP-1 is actually a hormone and it's often called the satiety hormone. The way that it works is that it slows down digestion, it sends signals to the brain that suppress appetite, and it increases the feelings of fullness. So, medications that mimic GLP-1, they help people feel full faster and for longer, which then leads to reduced food intake and subsequent weight loss.
That's great. Well, can you expand on that a little bit then? So what role does IFF play?
Yeah, so at IFF, we have a really broad portfolio of science-backed functional ingredients that can support satiety, the digestion, and also metabolic health, and all without compromising taste or texture. So these include the solutions under our food ingredients division, and they're from trusted legacy brands like Danisco, so people will know for stabilizers, emulsifiers, texturants, and wider ingredients, and also Soleil for the plant-based proteins. And we actually apply these to help the food and beverage manufacturers meet the needs of the GLP-1 consumers by designing foods that satisfy more, but with less.
All right. So I think the obvious question for me, looking at this for the food industry, is does the rise of GLP-1 and these medications, does that mean the food industry just needs to get used to the idea that people are going to eat less, they're going to sell less food?
No, not necessarily. It's really all about eating smarter for this group of consumers. They're really looking for foods that are more nutrient dense, satisfying, and really emotionally rewarding. And this obviously actually opens up for new opportunities for innovation and premiumization for the food and beverage industry. So obviously, we see that some categories are declining. Things like ready meals, snacks, sweet goods, baked goods. Those are clearly categories that are declining in consumption for this group of consumers. But we do also see other categories growing, such as high protein beverages and bars, yogurt and other dairy applications, and plant based meat and beverages. So it's actually more about for this industry to understand and develop products that adhere to and emphasize with GLP-1 consumers. And for them to develop products that are really more convenient and fit with their lifestyle.
So how big a market is this? How big is the demand for food products that adhere to the needs of GLP-1 consumers?
It is predicted to be a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, and it's really something that we see is growing rapidly. So just in the US alone, we're estimating at IFF that GLP-1 consumers represent a rough $56 billion share of the US household food and beverage spend. So it's sizable, but it really doesn't stop there. Our consumer insights show that even those consumers not on GLP-1, they're actually drawn to the same type of products. So products that are typically high in protein, low in sugar, and easy to portion. That's something we call the halo effect.
How much do we know about these consumers then and their wants and needs when it comes to food products? If it's beyond just they're going to eat less, what do we know about what they want?
Yeah, and it's a great question again. This is so important, and that's something we have really uh, looked at in depth at IFF. So we know that these consumers they want first of all convenience, they want satiety and emotional satisfaction. They are really struggling. They have a new relationship with food while taking this type of medication. So brands really need to offer more comfort and clarity, clear messaging in the products that they will consume. So something that is noticeable is that when consumers start to take this medication, their relationship to food and their preference in taste and texture really are radically altered. So taste profiles such as sweetness or bitterness, obviously texture or portion size, and the nutritional profile that may completely change in the way they experience and eat these type of products. So something that once tasted normal that can suddenly seem off-putting or even intolerable. So as these needs are new and emerging, the food and beverage industry need to look at what they're offering today, and we actually tend to see a disconnect between what's out there and available and what consumers are looking for. So it's important that we really take a step back as an industry and have a deep dive look into what consumers are really looking for here.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I hadn't really considered, I think, the idea that, certain tastes and textures might go from being appealing to unappealing. Obviously, I'm not involved on a technical level on this, but it just hadn't occurred to me. You're reading a lot about this, about GLP-1, and yet that hadn't really sprung up as an issue. But I mean, that's a big change for people, isn't it? If suddenly, one minute you like something, the next minute you don't. That is a big change.
Absolutely. And again, that's it's very radical for many of these consumers, and it's really changing the way they feel about food, their lifestyle. So again, we felt at IFF it was very important to move beyond surface level insights and really get to the heart of how GLP-1 consumers think and feel and behave. And so we had our research team beginning an in depth discovery interview process where they really had intimate, emotional conversations with real consumers who shared how GLP-1 medications were reshaping their relationship with food, with their bodies physically, and with their overall goals of weight loss. And this actually resulted in an interesting pattern of three consumer personas combined with different stages of treatment. Obviously, you have a group of consumers who are just starting the medication, but also transitioning then off the medication, and then finally trying to sustain the results after the medication. So these three stages plus different persona groups really resulted in an interesting matrix, what we call the GLP-1 consumer market opportunity matrix, because it really represent areas of opportunity of innovation where you have very specific need states for each of these segments.
Fabulous. I mean, and obviously a lot of research has gone into that. I wonder if we could talk a bit about what drives people to seek GLP-1 treatment. So obviously weight loss is obviously the overarching motivation, but I guess people come at that from different places, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. Yeah. So weight loss, as you say, that's really the primary goal, obviously, but it's often really tied to also some deeper motivations like health concerns, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, but also self-image or this wanting to have control over your body and what you intake. So it's really important to understand these nuances and with that, that can help our customers craft more empathetic messaging on their products.
We've sort of touched on this slightly already, this idea of consumers' tastes and texture, something that's appealing becoming unappealing. And in your white paper called 2025 GLP-1 Consumer Opportunity Outlook, we'll put that in the show notes so people can have a look. But you mentioned consumers may be grieving a loss from their changed food experience. And I wonder, I mean, that's quite strong language, isn't it? But how should brands acknowledge that emotional part of this?
Yeah. First of all, it's just very important to understand that and acknowledge that that is an altered relationship with food that we see with this consumer group. Um, we believe that by being supportive and even celebratory, brands can help consumers rediscover joy in food through the texture, the flavor, the portion size, being as clear with the claims and messaging as possible, and the storytelling, and something to ensure that really resonates with their new lifestyle. I think it's also important that brands consider providing solutions for different parts of these consumers' days to really reflect the different change in their preference between taste perception and preferences. So, for example, in the morning, consumers from this medication are often not particularly in the mood of eating. They're not particularly hungry. This is something our research has shown, and but it's still important to get your nutrients. So here, it's important, for example, to offer products that are perhaps small in portion size, but really are nutrient dense and have all the nutritional values that they need.
All right, look, we like solutions on this podcast, so let's see if we can talk about some solutions. And Jane, maybe we'll direct these at you. So, are there products at the moment that are being worked on?
Yeah, absolutely. We're spending a lot of time and effort on these solutions. So we're developing the high protein, low sugar snacks and beverages that really deliver this nutrition, but together with indulgence, or maybe we can say satisfaction, specifically for these GLP-1 users. So an example is a creamy protein shake. It is packed with high quality, complete protein. And what I mean is that it has all the essential amino acids that you need for health, together with high fiber, the low sugar, and the right flavors, and all to try and not be overwhelming for these consumers. So ingredients that we're using inside, they include our sucrose soy protein. This keeps the muscle mass maintained, which means you keep your lean muscle, but you lose more of the fat. We've got the fiber inside as well, the Light-S prebiotic fiber. And if we want, we can also combine this with our How Are You probiotics for the digestive health and regularity, because we're hearing that, some of the side effects is really on that digestive health. Then we add stabilizers to make sure the texture is right, but product has to be good at the end of shelf life. It has to stay good. And then finally, we're looking at the flavors, the modulation to give it the best taste profile, particularly when we're looking at these reduced sugar and the high protein type of products.
Okay, what are some of the biggest technical challenges then that you've encountered?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. Signe has also kind of alluded to this. It can be really tough to bring back the enjoyment element of it. There's also, we're missing some of the social elements too, but we need to deliver the essential nutrition, but in a really reduced portion size. So as developers, we've really got a lot to get right in this small serving. So when we think about that, texture and flavor delivery is one of the key elements. You've heard already that the GLP-1 users, they have a different taste experience. And sometimes they're often surprised by it themselves or not aware. They can be more sensitive, so they really feel things like sweetness or bitterness a lot more strongly. And of course, they've got less appetite. We also hear that they can struggle to finish the serving. The portions that they used to have, they're just way too big. So some of the consumers are saying they actually prefer a format with a multi-serve so they can, have what they want. So really our role is to try and create products that are both appealing but also easy so they can keep getting the nutrition they need. And then we just heard again from Signe about the wider opportunities to maybe look at the different day parts, the different flavors, maybe more savory, different flavor profiles, certainly less sweet and a lighter texture so that people consume all of it, or maybe a range of textures to give you a bit more variety. Again, it's all about, bringing the convenience so it can fit into a lifestyle.
It's interesting what you're saying about portion sizes, because it's a funny thing anyway, that, isn't it? Like if I make pasta, I always make too much, but I will always make too much. Like I'll do that every time. I never learn my lesson. But that must be that's a really hard habit to break, isn't it? Because you look at food, and if you've been making it that way for 20, 30 years, and then suddenly that's too much, it's quite hard to judge that stuff and to change those habits, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's really dramatic. The sizes are vastly reduced, and what was before was just unappealing. I think that's the other challenge as well, is that people are a bit overwhelmed by the food itself. They really do not feel hungry. They have lost any feeling of appetite. So actually, it's a big challenge to encourage people to have to get that essential nutrition.
Yeah. Okay. So as the market evolves then, where do you see the biggest technical innovations being made going forward?
Yeah, as we've said, it's a really tough area. I think there's a few places really. Flavor modulation, there's a lot happening in these products. We need to adapt to the changing profile, but equally we've got a lot inside that is needed for health. So the flavor delivery is going to be important. Also, we said about that joy and getting people to drink. You've mentioned already about portion engineering. It's the body needs certain nutrition, certain elements of it, and trying to get all of that in that very small part is going to be key. And then also looking at the different stages of the journey for those on pre or post medication, satiety signaling is also going to be key, to support the journey they've gone on so that they keep the benefits that they have. And if we look at all of those, so at IFF, we've really taken 4 key areas. So taste, definitely. Texture, kind of alluded to already. That nutrition, which is really key. One of the other areas is hydration as well, because people are also struggling with hydration. So we see actually that ingredients, they have to work a lot harder. So for a drink, for example, we're developing products that hydrate. And here we've used a natural ingredient, betaine. So that really helps with the hydration. But the drink also needs to nourish as well. You can have a snack that hopefully it's more satisfying and enjoyable, but it needs to do that in just a few bites. So I think we're really seeing that the products need to be specially developed for these consumers and also for the different parts of their weight loss journey. So they really feel that we do see them as an industry. We see them, we hear what they need, and we support this difficult journey.
Could you humour me for a second on the hydration point? So is that actually they people who are on these treatments don't feel thirsty or don't want the sensation of water going in because they feel full or liquid going in, or is it because a lot of the hydration we get is from the food we eat?
Yeah, you're right, kind of on both sides, really. So a lot of liquid is in the food that we eat, and also we've all felt it. If you drink too much, you feel full. So you're taking in a lot less. So this is why I say the challenge is really to do more in a very small space. So they really need to deliver.
Yeah, brilliant. Just want to return to the white paper for a second, and you have mentioned this scene already about the halo effect. So this is where non-GLP-1 consumers are gravitating towards some of these products that adhere to GLP-1 consumers' needs. How significant could this broader market be?
I mean, as I mentioned, it's really huge and growing. I mean, many consumers are adopting these GLP-1 inspired eating habits without the medication. So we really see, as I mentioned, the halo effect, and it's expanding the market for more functional, portion conscious foods. And they can really also serve as a way of maintaining weight for many consumers. And that is something we find in the general population. Really, we all want to sort of stay at the same weight, and so I think that interest of looking for healthy, nutrient dense, nutritional food is really continuing to grow and will continue to grow.
Now, obviously, this is an incredibly new area, and there's a lot of exploration to do, and there's obviously a lot more innovation to come. But there's great research being done. So, how is IFF working with manufacturers who are interested in GLP-1 consumers?
I mean, we can do this in a number of ways, and it's really what makes most sense to the manufacturers, to our customers. So we really can give end-to-end support. We can start with the consumer insights, and you've heard some of these today, and then through to the formulation or recipe development. We can take those recipes or formulations into sensory testing, make prototypes. And then the next stage is really to scale up from that bench top scale, so very small scale, up to factory, helping with running trials, making sure it performs the same way it does in the bench or the lab, and then looking at stability throughout shelf life with a different range of solutions. We also adopt a holistic approach, and this can really reduce the development time and increase the speed to market. And what I mean by that is really about selecting the best technology from our portfolio to deliver on the many levels, like we've heard already. So, for example, a high quality protein that has the right texture and stability. So we can get one product that's designed for the application to deliver on those levels. We've got protein nuggets that can really give that range of textures, more crunchy, even within the same product, to give nutrition, but also enjoyment. And then thinking of digestive health, we have our Lites fiber can obviously give that soluble fiber, but it can also deliver satiety, and it can help to mask any unwanted side notes or flavors, for like from high intensity sweeteners, for example. So these are just a few examples, but really at the core is our customers and what the product needs, and obviously building on the opportunities. And we're really, supporting the best way that makes sense, so that we can create products that meet both the functional, nutritional needs, as well as the emotional enjoyment element.
Lovely. Now, IFF will be appearing at the Food Matters Live events in Rotterdam and Ascot. So, can you tell us a bit about what people can expect from you?
Yes, absolutely. We're very excited about that. We'll be showcasing our latest GLP-1 consumer insights and product concepts. And, well, people can really expect a blend of science, sensory innovation, and emotional storytelling. So, yeah, absolutely. We'll be excited to present there.
Brilliant. Lovely. Listen, Signe, Causse and Jane Whittaker, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've learned so much. I don't think that's much of a surprise because I haven't got the technical knowledge anyway, but there was so much in there because I think this topic is out there. GLP-1 is out there. It's in the news, but it's just the headlines. And I think we've really got under the skin of it a bit today. So thank you so much for that.
Our pleasure. Thanks a lot.
So we've been talking about the Food Matters Live events where IFF will be. They're happening in Rotterdam on the 23rd and 24th of September and Ascot on October the 8th and 9th. If you visit foodmatterslive.com, you can register your interest in attending. I hope you enjoyed this episode made in partnership with IFF. Thank you so much for listening.